All right, guys, welcome to another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. The goal of the show is to really give people actionable, good tips to either get started in real estate investing or grow their current real estate investing business. So I'm really excited to have Anthony Lawson here today on the call. Sorry if I'm looking this way. I got some notes on my other screen here.
No worries.
But Anthony, 6 years of real estate investing experience. And I think when we start talking, you'll see he's came a very long way in those 6 years. He currently owns and operates a real estate investment fund called Global Investment Capital Group, LLC. And it's a debt fund specializing in commercial real estate assets like group homes, sober living facilities, single tenant retail buildings, and hotels. And it sounds like you're currently operating into the three markets: Jersey,
Yes.
Ohio, and Detroit, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're looking to get into Florida as we speak?
Yes. Florida. I have a team built out in Florida, just analyzing deals, Texas and Georgia. So looking forward for those markets.
Okay, so you still got Texas and Georgia too. It looks like you're doing
Yep.
quite a bit of expansion at
Yes.
this stage in your career, which is awesome to hear.
Hmm.
Um, I want to take people back to kind of where it all started, like
Okay.
6 years ago. How'd you even get interested in real estate investing? What was your first deal like, and what kind of
Okay.
got you exposed into this world?
That's a very good question. So, 6 years ago, I was still in the military, phasing out the military. I was doing some law enforcement things, different jobs. I was just trying to really find my purpose. I wasn't too fulfilled with the law enforcement position that I had. I just felt that, for myself, I had a bigger cause. So for me, it all started back, man. Luckily, I have an uncle that's been in the shared living space. He doesn't do group homes or any of the assisted living facilities that I like to do, but he's in the shared accommodation space, and
Mhm.
he was telling me about it. So I was just like, wow, that seems pretty interesting, because usually when you hear about real estate, you usually hear about either apartment buildings or small multifamily 2 to 4 units. So
Mhm.
I thought that was very appealing to me. So I saved up my money, saved up because I was still working at the time. And then I took a first time home buyer program loan called FHA, just in case nobody didn't know, first time home buyer program. And then
Mhm.
from there, I bought a 6 bed, 2 bath house in Newark, New Jersey, and I took the basement and I rented out the top and started doing some shared living accommodation. And then not only him having that idea being brought into my vision, I was actually on 280 highway, and I got off of the exit and I started talking to a gentleman. He was a homeless veteran, and he started telling me about his background and everything like that. And I said, wow, if I serve too, I wonder if there's more people like that. And I started doing more research about a lot of the population that's really homeless is homeless veterans, which is sad. So I said, what if I can create a business model out of it, which I did. And I started doing shared living accommodation to homeless veterans, people in need. So I started doing group homes, assisted living facility for elderly, and I just started taking it to another level.
Wow, man. That's really inspiring. And I didn't even know that that was part of your business, was doing that for homeless veterans. So that's awesome to
Yes.
hear. I know it was just Veterans Day. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate
Make
that.
sure I acknowledge that. What'd you do? 4 years in the Army?
Yes, I did. Well, I did 5.5 in the guard. Yep, in the army, I was in the guard. And that's when I was still doing that part time, and I was doing law enforcement. So it was, both doing a lot of trainings and different things like that.
Mm. So if by chance someone who had served in the past,
Yep.
is looking for housing and they're either in any of the markets that we had mentioned,
Mhm.
what would be a good way for them to kind of reach out to you and get in contact?
Yeah, so I would say, if they're looking to do something similar to what I was, doing or have done, I would say if you have social media, you can reach out to me, Anthony Lawson on Facebook
Hmm.
and Instagram, Anthony underscore the investor. If you do need to actually like, okay, man, I want to email you. Maybe I got some, specific questions, whatever the case may be. You can do Anthony at globalinvestmentcapitalgroup.com.
Anthony at global1capitalgroup.com.
Oh, no one, just Anthony at globalinvestmentcapitalgroup.com.
Gotcha. Got it.
Yep.
And we'll put that in the description here in the end of the video for everybody.
Yep.
So how have things changed since that first deal? So you got the FHA, which is for
Mhm.
people who don't know, that's really anything under 4 units. You can get an
Yep.
FHA residential financing. Anything above that is more of a commercial loan and commercial real estate. So after that 6 bedroom house, did you kind of just jump right into commercial real estate investing?
So commercial is funny because I was on another podcast and they asked me what was my first commercial deal, and honestly, I don't even remember my first commercial deal. I've done quite a bit of different deals in different states, but I do know after I finished that particular deal that we just discussed about me doing the basement and sharing out the space, my next property actually in this, you know, the beauty of what I do in the shared accommodation space, you can do it from buying assets to leasing. So I actually
Mhm.
leased this property on a month to month. I pitched the landlord my business model because I was still saving up. I had quite a bit of reserves put to the side from the first property, and I let him know what I was doing, and he liked the calls. So I said, okay, great. Then from there, with his consent, of course, because it was his property, I dropped some walls. So I took a 3-2 to a 5-2, dropped the wall, and I started doing couples in all of the rooms. And then in the basement, since it was like his own bonus unit down there, I Airbnb'd it. So he said like a ridiculous number for the rent. So I said, okay, great. I think I could make that work. And it was month to month anyway. So he wanted to see if I was a good fit, and I wanted to see if he was a good fit for my business model. And then
Right.
from there, I was, took 2,400 from him, and he was paying all the utilities out his end. Well, essentially had me pay all the utilities, but I kind of factored that in, like a triple net lease, so to speak. And from there, I said, okay. I was bringing in, I believe my memory served me right. I was bringing in a little over 6,000 because I was doing Airbnb in the basement and couples, all of the rooms I was doing 950. So it was a pretty good outcome. But it only lasted like 8 months because the landlord kind of wanted to start trying to do it himself. So I said, okay, no problem. And then from there, I bought another property, conventional loan. And then from there, I started doing a lot of JVs, which is joint ventures, if the viewers don't know. Start partnering up. I started finding the deals with my own capital and start doing, and I was always doing wholesaling as well, too. I didn't even mention that. So when I first started, even besides that first property I actually bought, I learned wholesaling. I started
Hmm.
wholesaling as well to actually bring in more cash. And I was doing that with cash infusion with finding deals and then
Hmm.
finding good strategic partnerships. And then I was buying properties. So,
Awesome. Awesome. So for that, say someone has a 4 bedroom house or a
okay.
6 bedroom house, or they have enough bedrooms where they might be doing a long-term tenant now, and
Mhm.
they're hearing this and they're like, wow, like 6,000 a month, that's some pretty amazing
Yep.
cash flow.
Mhm.
How would they go about renting out the bedrooms? Like does is each city a little bit different in the zoning? Do you have to get a specific, license for it? Or how does that all work?
So some cities and municipalities urge people to get a license, depending on how big it is, and different things like that, ramifications, how wide the bedrooms are, and different things like that, and depending on what you want to do, right? Because you can take a 4-2 and do sober living. Sober
Hmm.
living, you don't need any license. You can look up what's called Oxford House.
Hmm.
Oxford House has over 1,000 sober living facilities throughout the country. No license on none of them, and it's sort of how you run it. So you have that model. You could do group homes, that's catering to mental health and disabilities. You have assisted living facilities. So you have all these different kind of things that you can turn forward to into something else. Or you could just simply rent out the bedrooms, right? Like maybe you're next door to a college, you want to do student housing. Student housing, there is no such zoning for student housing. People just literally just rent out the bedrooms to students, college students. So it
Right.
just really depends on what you want to do. And I always tell people to get the education first, because then from there your brain will start, analyzing different methods and different creative ways to actually turn something, turn that something into something else. So I would say that. And then but yeah, typically speaking, shared living, you don't necessarily need a license. Just I personally feel like certain states and municipalities want you to get a license so they can, kind of regulate what's going on and different things like that. But you don't necessarily need a license, especially when it depends on you um, catering to a specific population. So you have like, handicap, elderly, people with disabilities, SSI, SSDI, veterans, different things like that.
Mhm.
And with that being said, you have something called the Fair Housing Act. And the Fair Housing Act, you can't discriminate against, those specific people, right? So,
Right.
when municipalities come in and say, "Oh, you can't do that," that's actually discriminating against that
Mm.
population class, which is a breach of the Fair Housing Act. So if anyone looks up Oxford House, you will actually learn a lot from them and see how they went to court in Cherry Hill and all of the different places throughout New Jersey, Elizabeth and everything like that. And then they won every court case because they was being discriminated against from the city. So it depends
Yep.
on what you want to do. I do have unlicensed properties and I have licensed properties. So it really just depends on my style of investing for the area.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I know a
Yep.
few people down at the Jersey Shore where there's an Oxford house and the
Yep.
neighbors get a little bit upset and they try to complain and they try and
Yep.
go to the city. But there's like you said, there's really nothing that they can do because it is a
Right.
discrimination against that
Yep.
population.
Absolutely.
So I've heard from a few different investors that this style of investing, like the group homes, the assisted living facilities, specifically though rooming houses,
Hmm.
they can be very management intensive.
Hmm.
Depending on the area, you sometimes you might get not the easiest class of tenants that come
Hmm.
through there and rent from you.
Yep.
Um, One, I guess, is has that been true in your experience? And two, if it has been, like how do you go about managing that? Do you outsource it? Have you ever done it yourself first before outsourcing it?
Yes. So every property that I'm explaining to the viewers, I've done all of them, hands on, so I can know how to run it. And I would tell anybody, if you want to do that first, or you can just think of I want to outsource it from the get go, you can do that as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I always say, to answer your question, it can be management intensive if you let it. The reason why I say that because if you are owner operator, me, I'm not an owner operator. I do not run it, but I like to think of myself as working on the business, not in it. So I like to hire the right people and replace myself. Maybe I do have a construction, license, things like that, but maybe some things need to be fixed. I get that handyman. If I know that I don't want to hire a property management company to cut costs, I have a living house manager. And if it's a licensed group home and things like that, I have different staff to do medications, cooking. I'm not the chef, right? I'm not at the group homes cooking. So
Yeah.
I have people cooking and sober living facilities. I have living house managers. So I'm not in all of these different states. I don't physically go to every property. I visit some properties when I'm in town, but
Hmm.
I like to remove myself and work on the business. But it can be, it definitely can be. Rooming houses is something I started off on doing the shared living accommodation, but I scaled up from rooming houses. The reason being is because group homes and assisted living and even sober living, sober living is a little bit different because you could do around 3 to 4 people a room. But if it's a group home or assisted living, you could typically do 1 or 2 people in a room. A rooming house, this is just regular shared living accommodations, typically just one person.
Mm.
And it can be management intensive if you. It depends on who you want to help, right? Because you have like a halfway house style of investing where you're helping people that was incarcerated at one point. They come out, they need to re-enter society, they need affordable housing. So
Right.
you can do some type of contract with probation, parole officers, different things like that. And then they actually have the DOJ that you can get a actual contract for if they allow it for that area. DOJ, if people don't know, that's just Department of Justice. And
Right.
then from there, they can tell you how much they pay, how long the contract is for, and different things like that. But once again, I hire the key personnel. I do not do any day to day physically working, passing out medication. I don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be kind of hard, like finding new
Right.
deals, submitting LOIs, and also managing all the projects as well. And to your
Absolutely.
point, I think, probably finding the right managers and the people to make that all run smoothly is probably key. So,
Yes.
what did that process look like for you to help find those people? Did you simply just Google and start calling around to different places?
Yeah. So one of my key tricks that I actually teach people is if you have like I'm gonna say a group home or assisted living facility, if you want to find that key person, not only do you have, of course, a deed and different things like that for resumes and screen people out, have somebody screen them out, but you actually just get referrals or hire in-house. I usually like to try to do in-house first. People that have been
Mhm.
there for a while, maybe they want to go to the next level, but maybe the previous owner didn't let them because they was trying to cut costs and or not even cut costs. I'm sorry, maybe they was just too hands-on, right? They didn't want to let people spread their wings, so to speak. So I come in, I try to hire in-house, or if they have any type of referrals, and one of my sources is hospitals. The reason why I say hospitals is because there's a lot of LPNs, STNAs, RNs, and different things like that that's getting burnt out in the hospital because
Right.
they're working extremely too hard and different things like that. And people don't know, once you work in a hospital, if someone calls out, you have to stay. It's not
Yeah.
like you can just leave or whatever
You
the case
can't
may
leave
be.
the
You have to
patients
stay.
there. They're
Yeah,
sick. So yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So now a lot of people, and it's not even about pay because during the pandemic, a lot of hospitals is trying to do more incentives, different thing like that. But I like to say that's one of my key things too is incentives. But you have to offer the right incentives, right? And
Mm.
people want to come from doing hospitals where it was just one person to about 50, 50 people to now coming down to assisted living. Even if it is a big assisted living, there's more people on the floor to
Hmm.
help them run the day-to-day operation. So they want to be in that smaller setting, but hospitals has been pretty good for me, especially in referrals too.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hmm.
So Jersey seems pretty intuitive as far as like picking your market is concerned.
Yes.
Um, how did you go about branching out to Ohio and Detroit,
Okay.
and you're looking at Florida and Texas and Georgia?
Okay.
Um, what type of market research, would you consider important? And
Okay.
how easy or difficult might it have been to start investing out of state?
Okay. So that's a good question. I break it down a little bit further.
Hmm.
So the market trend I always like to do, like for me, it takes a few months to enter into a market to actually buy something
Hmm.
because I'm interviewing a lot of people's, right? Then you have to have backups. You can't just have one of everybody. So I like to have backup contractors, GC subcontractors. And I know what to look for because I am a GC in New Jersey license and licensed in Ohio as well, in Cleveland specifically.
Okay.
And then from there, I like to build out, title companies, attorneys, operators, management companies. So it's a lot of different key personnel that you need to make the whole system work. And then from there, I actually that's when I would go and buy something. And then of course it get tweaked because, you're only interviewing people. You have to see how they perform. If they don't perform right, that's where the key personnel, you have that backup as the key personnel, had them step in and so on and so forth. So it takes me a few to get into a market, but I don't rush the process. You don't want to just buy something and then trying to find everything else. I like to do the team first and then buy, because then it makes the process easy. It depends on what the asset class is. And then
Right.
from there, you had mentioned how was that transition from New Jersey out of state, especially the Midwest. For me, I looked at it like this. I have my uncle-in-law was trying to tell me to come and buy something in Detroit for the longest. I just never done it. And I said, you know what? It makes sense. The price to rent ratio is amazing. Cleveland, I like Cleveland's price to rent ratio a little bit more than Detroit, but Cleveland's group home pays a lot less than Detroit's. So it just ultimately work hand in hand. And then the reason why I went back into Cleveland because from Detroit, it's only 2.5 hours away from there. So for me, it's like going from New Jersey, then cutting all the way through, right? And then you can take 80
Right.
on the highway all the way through. And it's only a couple hour drive. I usually like to drive. Flying is usually like more or less in the wintertime because
Hmm.
it's a little bit easier to move around. I have to deal with any snow or anything like that. But
Right.
that's how I stepped into those markets, man. I built up my team first. I had brokers and everybody sending me wholesalers sending me deals. I was
Hmm.
analyzing a lot of deals, throwing out different feelers, and I had my team on standby. So when I closed, it was a lot easier for me to just put the key personnel in place.
Yeah,
And
the
then you had mentioned,
contractors, you had everyone
yeah,
ready, kind of ready to go.
absolutely,
Gotcha.
absolutely. Then we had just went out and branched out in New Jersey because we do a lot of projects in New Jersey, branching out of there to Cleveland, Ohio. So Ohio is a little bit different, like New
Hmm.
Jersey per se. You get the GC license, you're licensed for the whole state. But when you get the license in Ohio, you're licensed for the city. So it's a little bit different. So if I
Oh,
want to
wow.
work in the next city over, I got to get the license for that city. So it's
Wow.
totally, yeah, it's totally different, man. It was new experience for me. but yeah, and that's how it went. So I closed on, some properties first in Cleveland. And then I was like, you know what, let me just go back out to Detroit. And then now we're looking at some group homes out there that's on, actively under contract. Looking forward to doing some good things in all of the markets. And then you had mentioned Texas and everything else. It's just because if you look at all the data, because you had mentioned another part question, like what do I look for? The trend,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Where
like
is everybody
metrics
moving?
wise and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely, job growth and everything else. So,
Mhm.
just to pick up back off that synergy you had mentioned, Texas and Florida is the number one states that everyone is moving to, right? No state Texas, no state taxes, and different things like that. Warm climate, weather, and people actually want to be there, and they offer a lot more job growth. Big companies are moving in there, and different things like that. So that's the key metrics I look at. Then I look at if I'm buying a facility, do they have management companies, right? Florida and Texas do. Do they have operators just in case they don't have management companies? Like
Mhm.
Detroit, like it's always going to be operators, right? Because it's owner operators. So it's always going to be operators. It's just about are they willing to operate your facility now if you don't want to do it?
Right.
So I look at all of that, and then I look at building up that team from there, and just making sure that they know how to hire people, let people go if they're not doing their thing, and things that they're supposed to do, and then I just keep it going and just keep tweaking, the whole engine, so to speak, and just making sure it flows smooth.
I think that's really important for people to understand is how you kind of built backwards, you kind of knew the area that you wanted to invest in based on different things that you had mentioned, like job growth and
Yep.
if it's a good area to invest in. And then you start building the team. So by the
Yep.
time you are ready to submit an LOI, you
Yep.
at least have an idea. You have 2 to 3 people that you can somewhat rely on or
Right.
seem like they could be a good fit. I guess you don't really ever know until it's in motion and it's in action,
Absolutely. Yep.
but you have at least numbers that you can call and people that are kind of ready and waiting for your call, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Yep.
So for some of these management companies,
Hmm.
you know, the management's a lot different on something that's like assisted living. What can
Yep.
people expect to pay as far as like percentage of rent to a
Hmm.
management company?
So I see management companies anywhere between 8 to 12%.
Okay.
So and it seems like a lot. It can be, but is your revenue is bringing a whole lot more than you would in an apartment building.
Hmm.
Is it more management intensive things that they have to do? Yes, because of staff. You know, but I tell anyone if you compare, it's really you really can't compare apples to apples because it's two different type of asset classes. But if someone was to do an apartment building versus assisted living facility, personally, me, my style of investing, I like things that are a lot flexible. So I can change the usage of assisted living to, let's say, it didn't work in that area, and that's why it closed down to a sober living facility. But let's say it's a lot of sober living facilities, so I can turn it into a group home. Or maybe it's more in the area where it's not that many halfway houses in the city and the state will like it to be, then I turn it into a halfway house. So I like different things that can be more flexible. Apartment building, typically speaking, you can be flexible, but to a certain extent, you have to do a
Right.
lot of reconfiguring of the layout, right? A lot more construction and different things like that. Facilities is already up and running. You already put two people in a room. You just different license and different, city certificate of occupancy. Well, other than that, you're good to go. And then the revenue per room is totally different. Just like, hotels, they say revenue per room. But, if you look at revenue per room per like group homes, different things like that, it's a lot higher than an apartment building,
Hmm.
right? Ohio, on the low end, you can get 1100 all the way up to about 2800 per person, depending on, the amount of care that you're providing, just like in assisted living. Assisted living, typically, me and you are from New Jersey, you can go all the way up to $10,000 a month for one person for assisted living facility. So,
Yeah.
and then once again, it depends on how much care that you're providing, different amenities you offer, different services, different things like that. And that includes your room and board as well. So it just really depends. But if you look at an apartment building, you have a lease. You can't just go in there and say I want $1,000 more. You can't do that. So
Yeah.
it just really depends. It depends on your style of investing. And then personally, me, it's a lot of baby boomers. If you look at the market trend, it's a lot more baby boomers are retiring, right? So a
Mm.
lot of people are retiring, and we're not even talking about the people that's actually retiring from their just regular job that does not have dementia, Alzheimer's. They just getting old. They work 30, 40 years out their job. So where they're going to go? They're going to go into a senior senior housing facility, or if they have some type of disability now, they're going to need assisted living. So,
Right.
if you look at that trend, they're needing a lot more facilities to be built. HUD actually put out a statement about a month or two ago that said they allocating up to 20 million for multifamily to be converted over to assisted living facilities. So it's an exciting
Wow.
opportunity to get in. Yep.
So they're actually going to help investors subsidize that transition.
Yep, absolutely. So it's geared towards nonprofits, but you can always work with a nonprofit. I work with numerous nonprofits. So if you have a nonprofit running and oversee it, you just do a JV with the nonprofit, right? Or something to that effect to make sure it can work for everybody.
Right. Right. Wow, that's
Yep.
really smart. Yeah.
Yep.
Positioning yourself for where things are going to go is
Yep.
super smart. And it sounds like you guys are in a great position to um I don't want to say the word take advantage because it sounds
Mhm.
like it has like a negative connotation towards it, but
Right.
you're in a good position to help a lot of the people that are going to need
Mhm.
that anyway
Absolutely.
in the near
Absolutely.
future.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, it's just like, people are going to need these services anyway. So why
mhm,
not just be the person that actually do the right thing, make sure that they have, fair, affordable housing, clean place to stay, nice cooked meal, different things like that. So we all human at the end of the day. It's just a lot of people don't really know about these opportunities because it was never brought to them. So, but now,
yeah.
you can look at something and say, oh, wow, I remember I learned this, you can just go out there and make it happen.
How important has a mentor been for you in going from I just have, kind of a residential unit that I converted into renting out room by room to now
Mhm.
you operate a debt fund, you're a little bit
Yep.
vertically integrated by having a contracting company, you're
Yep.
in multiple states. In the bio that you sent me,
Yep.
your portfolio now has 235 beds, right?
Yep.
How
Yep.
many buildings is that across, by the way?
Ooh, I think that's 12 buildings.
12
Yeah,
buildings.
yeah, I think it's 12 buildings. Yeah, in New Jersey, I had my portfolio. Well, I'm from New Jersey, so it was pretty large at one point in New Jersey before I even stepped outside to do the Midwest. But obviously, you sell the small stuff to do the bigger deals. So your bed count or unit count always kind of fluctuates.
Right.
But yeah, I think that being you know cross cross collateralized in a way. Not just talk about assets, but like in different industries within real estate can help you as well too, right? Like if
Mhm.
you are an appraiser, but you're an investor, you can go in there and say, okay, I know that the numbers are these. You know how to find comparables, a little bit faster. You know how to do it from the income approach. If you're doing commercial real estate, now it's like a different spin. So me being the GC, I know what to look for if I go into a building or a residential unit that needs rehab, I know what to look out for. And I know if people are trying to take advantage or if they're not. So it
Right.
just it really helps me per se. But I also say too, you have to know yourself, right? Because I think we all know, like we hear it over time, like do one asset class, do one thing at a time. Personally, me, I don't believe that per se, only because you know yourself. No one knows you like you know yourself. So if you know how to do multiple different things, and personally, me, I think that makes a little bit more sense. Because what if one asset class is really hurting, right? But
Mhm.
and you're in that asset class, but you don't know how to operate the rest of the asset classes.
And you're
Then you're
super
kind of stuck.
leveraged. Yeah, and
Yeah,
you're super.
absolutely. You don't
Yep.
really know the versatile and how to get flexible. So that's why I like to be across different asset classes because
Mhm.
different markets, get hit harder in different asset types versus others. So it's different to be, kind of cross, against multiple ones.
I'm sure that there's always a level of risk by going
Yep.
for that first one, and really, even if it's your 100th one, there's still going to be a level of risk.
Yep.
Um, what kind of helped you mitigate that and give you the confidence and um I know you publicly share some of like the calls that you do consistently.
Yep.
If you guys aren't following Anthony already on Facebook and Instagram, highly recommend that you do. He's posting stuff every day about the grind, about staying
Yep.
focused, about his
Yep.
goals, calls with your
Yep.
mentor.
Yep.
Like how important is that for you? And do you get a lot of guidance for helping you get that confidence and mitigate the risk on these newer deals?
Yes, that's a good question. Mentorship I feel like is well needed. And I think people underplay themselves by just doing YouTube University, right? You know, everybody knows YouTube University,
Yeah.
which is great to go on YouTube. Don't get me wrong, because things can be free. But I feel like my motto has always been you cut a check to go fast in life, right? You know, you if you were to go to college, you have to pay for books, right? And
Right.
then, you know, you still have to do other things. So a mentor, depending on who it is, because I always say you have to have some type of synergy with that mentor, right? Like they something about them stands out to you and you look up and inspire to be them or do what they're doing. So it has to stand out to you and they have to be relatable. So I feel like that's one of the key things, but it's very important to get a mentor because they already been there, done that. That's why you cutting that check to go a little bit faster so you can avoid all those pitfalls that they've been through. So,
Mm,
and I think it's very, very important that everyone, like, no matter how big you grow, you should still always seek somebody that's, you know, a little bit more than you. So you can always have some type of mentor. You know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, my mentor had a mentor and, you know, you have mentors in different aspects of life, whether it's health, you know,
right.
whether it's marriage, you know, finances, you know, everybody has a mentor in something, you know, and I feel like, you know, a mentor is the key thing to success. You know, if you look at everybody, you know, that's like the ultra wealthy, they had a mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's that saying? You stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you need to have someone who's better than you or further
Yep.
ahead than you, who's just had
Yep.
those experiences. And it
Yep.
sounds like that's really paid off for you, which is awesome, man. And
Yep.
I've been seeing a little bit that you're trying to do that for the next round of investors that are kind of starting from the ground up. Or even if
Absolutely.
they're already up and rolling and they want to help grow their business and expand their network. You guys do some meetups?
Yeah. So what I just put together too for New Jersey is
Mhm.
I just created a assisted living group home meetup because I haven't seen one for the whole state of New Jersey. So I'm gearing towards the focus of, you know, making that pop a little bit, having more meetups geared towards that. I do have something called Group Home Mastery that I
Mhm.
teach people how to get into the space and how to start up a group home, sober living, and all that good stuff. If you want to do that, of course, we talked a little bit about the fund, just in case you want to invest with me directly. You know, maybe they love the idea of investing, but don't necessarily want to do the day to day operations. That's where I'll come in at because I do the whole thing. And
Mhm.
then, you know, so I'm like vertically integrated between different things and just trying to get that, you know, the word out there, you know, to your point of letting people know that they can do it if they want to be an active investor. They just got to approach it the right, the right way and getting a mentor and, you know, all this other good stuff.
So if they want to invest, we'll have the email posted below.
Yep.
So you guys can reach out to Anthony to get some more information on that. Group
Yep.
home mastery, that sounds like a little bit more of is that like an online course type of model?
Yes. So it's an
Okay.
online course. I do monthly Zooms, you know, every month, once a month, just a one time fee, no upselling, no upcharging, anything like that. And then you get enrolled into a Slack channel, which is just a group of everybody that's in there learning group homes. Had a student that's closed on, you know, his share living accommodation property in New Jersey. I think a week and a half ago, he's working on two more that's under contract. So different people that's different, you know, doing different things throughout the country, different students. So it's an online platform for that. And then yeah, you know, looking forward to helping a lot more people out.
Awesome. We'll make sure to include that link in the video as well, and maybe I'll
Yep.
be able to negotiate a discount code for the viewers from Anthony.
Yep. For sure, for sure.
We only have a few more minutes, man. I
Yep.
wanted to dive into to financing a little bit before the call's
Yep.
over because I think a lot of
Yep.
people, maybe they have the hustle, maybe they have the knowledge, maybe they're in group home mastery, maybe
Hmm.
they're doing everything they can to absorb the information. Maybe they just don't have a huge stack of cash to invest in
Hmm.
a sober living facility. How do people go about financing them? I know you mentioned you started with residential FHA financing, which requires very little down payment.
Right.
Um, what are some other ways people can finance these deals?
So that's the beauty of it, man. That's the beauty of it because you're getting the real estate and the business. So you treat it as like a Burger King or Wendy's would, right? Like they don't necessarily want the real estate. Maybe they don't want it right now, but they'd rather take a lease. So you can do the same thing on a group home or assisted living. You can go in there, tell the landlord your whole model. Maybe you know how to get the license from scratch. You negotiate a fixed lease rate, and then from there you start your facility up. Now it's very little down, just coming out of pocket, or maybe furniture. If you don't have any furniture money, it's places like hotel auctions that you can buy bulk and discount. So, you have places like that you can get furniture from. And there's different ways you can do it. I'll give you a couple ways. You can do a lease with an option to buy. Maybe you
Mhm.
want to lock in a lease right now, but then buy it in the future. You can just do a straight option agreement. I did that before. What an option agreement is just you negotiated the price up front, right? Maybe it was 500,000, right? And you gave, maybe the landlord was okay with 10,000 down. Now you can operate and do all of this stuff, and maybe you told them the landlord is going to close in 2 years. You can operate, collect the cash flow every month, right? Because you got an option on it, and whatever you negotiated with the landlord, and then you can close 2 years from now. So that's the beauty of it. You got seller
Wow.
financing that you could do, down payment now, sort of like the seller is being the bank, right?
Hmm.
Where it can make it work. If it's a distressed facility, you have a wraparound mortgage. You can create a new mortgage on top of the seller's note, and maybe you want to build up, go in there, repurpose it, refinish it through maybe another facility in there to make the numbers up a little bit higher, cover the seller's expenses, cover your own expenses, and walk away with some cash flow. And there's different creative methods that you can do, of course, subject to you take over the mortgage, make the payments as if you were the seller. Then from there you can collect the difference. So it's a lot of different creative methods. I think people just have to understand that's what the mentor is for. You have to get someone that's been there and can open up your eyes to creative methods, because you don't know what you don't know. But if you have somebody that's getting creative too, then you're more susceptible. Like, oh, I never thought of that before. Let me go try that now. So it's a little bit easier.
For sure. And it sounds like these are things that you guys talk about in group home mastery as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I teach my students. They have every one of my lenders. They have my insurance people. They have all my creative methods, my contracts, my scripts, the whole nine.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yep.
I love what you're doing, dude. I love how you're reaching out and you're helping people now do the same thing. This guy's young. You're 29 years old. You've already
Yep.
have over a dozen properties, 235 beds across multiple states. Very inspiring. Wishing you, a ton of continued success. We're going to have your
Appreciate that.
contact information and the group home mastery info at the bottom of the call.
Okay.
And I wish we had more time, man. I want to
Yeah.
continue talking, so maybe we'll have you on again.
Yep.
And have a good rest of your day, man. It's great talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nick. I appreciate what you've been doing as well too. I see you posting and getting the listings up there, and informing clients of the market and different things like that. So I see the posts, and I definitely appreciate what you guys do as well too.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. We're gonna get a deal done at some point. I know I'm
There you
sending
go.
you a bunch of stuff, so we'll eventually close the deal together. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nick, for inviting me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Have a good one, Anthony. Take care.
You too. Thanks.